this episode of Full Bore, we get Crumpy the short wheelbase Hilux going again using the 18R petrol engine that I purchased in the previous episode. Now, the engine is in the trailer behind Duncan, and the first issue we came across was a whole bunch of dead trees across the track, knocked over by the storms of the previous week. Now, this meant that the tracks were also wet and slippery due to all the rain, so I had to give Duncan every single berry that it had to get up this steep slope. But the track was no match for Duncan's 57 whole horsepower, and neither was it a match for Brendan's 4Runner. Dave in his V8 Cruiser could have idled up, but he decided to give it some berries instead, and this next bit of footage is put in purely so we can listen to the symphony of VDJ Cruiser. Poor old Crumpy. Crumpy's been sitting here for probably about 6 months now, purely because the engine blew up. Now we've got the 18RG. We've got it up here, we've got it out of the trailer, and we've safely got it on the hoist here, and Dave's standing under it with his safety shoes. Hey Dave. So this is our Australian ADR approved engine lifter. And the 18R is up there. I'm a bit skeptical as whether or not I'm going to have to whip off the extractors. The trouble is, once they're in the vehicle, they're a bit of a pain in the butt to get the bolts in under here because it's a non-cross flow motor. What are you doing, mate? Hey, silly mutt. Right, the plan is Dave and his bundy's going to pull Crumpy over to here. You'll probably have to winch it underneath because that motor is as high as it'll go, and I don't think we're going to be able to get Crumpy underneath that, but we'll see how we go.
Oh, look at that spider on the door.
Where?
Right there. Don't
Sorry.
do that. Lazy, come here.
A bit more forward the car. Good. Right, now down with the hoist.
Okay, if we get that jack, transmission jack in place now, you reckon?
Yeah, we'll go a little bit more forward the car.
It's mostly just so I can still access that strap. The plate, there's a stud here, the motor needs to
Right, rotate.
rotate. Can you go down?
Well, what you could do now is if we could go down with the jack and the motor at the same time, so the motor rests on its mounts there.
Yep.
Go down with the hoist, Brandon.
Keep going.
Keep going. Good. How's that? That's more lined up, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the jack needs to go up a little bit.
Did you go all the way down, did it?
Must have. There we go. Yep, there we go.
It's in, is it?
Yep. It just went guggle. Yeah, it needs to go.
Now it's in. It's definitely in now.
So your engine mount's lined up? There's nothing more satisfying than when an engine just thunks itself right into place. And now that the motor's installed, I thought we'd just watch a little time lapse to see just how easy it was.
Oi. So we need a fuel tank next so we can prime up some fuel. Turn the ignition off, Brandon. Right, back on. That's better.
That's more gooder than I've ever seen in my life. That fan's done up tight?
Yep. Turn the key, Brandon.
Well, there you go. One of the issues that we came across was the fact that the 18R has a completely different thermostat housing outlet location to the 18RG, meaning that the hose from the radiator to the cylinder head was wrong. Good thing I brought a whole bunch of hoses from the back shed, and Davo found a really schmick little piece of plastic that made the perfect joiner between two hoses, meaning that we could make the absolute pinnacle of engineering, that is the hose that currently sits between the radiator and the cylinder head. Now that piece of plastic, I have no idea whether or not it's heat resistant or pressure resistant, but I can guarantee you it is probably better quality than anything they've used in any Volkswagen ever. The next issue was the exhaust. The 18RG had a completely different extractor system than the 18R. Fortunately, we were able to get the previous exhaust system to slide on with a bit of bending and persuading with some wood chunks. It's ugly, but it will probably work until it falls apart. That's it. Got in.
That will last for years, that that wire.
Well, it'll last as long as the barbed wire fence would. The next thing we had to do was flush the radiator because it was full of nasty chunks that had sort of migrated their way out of the original engine block.
to. Needs another muffler on it, I think.
It was time for the maiden voyage.
Wish me luck.
This would be the make or break moment for Crumpy, because Crumpy, up until this point, has been a massive dog. I've never really been able to get a good run out of it to unlock the full off-roading capabilities of this vehicle.
Dipstick. The 18R is pretty torquey. It goes alright. It's not the sweetest engine ever. It's funny, when we had it going at home, it ran like a Swiss watch. But now the timing chain's kind of rattling, and it doesn't sound anywhere near as sweet as what it used to. Pretty responsive though. Yahoo! Yahoo! Does a good burnout. Holy doolies. Because it's so light in the rear end, it lights them up pretty easy. I'm pretty sure I welded the diff in it. I'm certain of it. I hate the muffler on it. I really hate it. It's like some sort of weird performance muffler, probably from the 90s, to give it like a good note. And I reckon it sounds like a friggin' 2-litre Lancer cruising up the main street of Kempsey at 1 o'clock in the morning. Really doesn't sound that good. Real P-plate spec. So I want to get like a proper muffler on it, not just some sort of... It's kind of like a muffler looking friggin' cannon type thing. Not a fan. Oh! So Crumpy is back on the tracks with a lot of help from Davo, the mechanical wizard, Paul, Brendan and Summer Levine. We've got Crumpy up and running again. It's been quite a while without this car, because I've been trying to track down parts for that 18RG, which ended up being a futile exercise. Now we're on the maiden voyage with the new engine, and first impressions are that it's pretty good. Not much has changed between the two engines, and I think the predominant reason for that is that we never actually got the 18RG running good enough to really see it at its full potential, because we always had tuning issues and it was always backfiring and running lean, and we never really quite had enough time to put a new set of carburetors or a carburetor kit on that motor to really unlock all of the twin cam horsepower. But thus far I'm really happy with this engine. What are you doing, mate? Wait a minute. We might get pulled over, Blazy. Alright.
Do you want to grab him?
No, he's alright for now. There's a few little bits and bobs that I need to finalise. Doesn't have an oil pressure switch, which is kind of scary, because if I hit the sump and lose all the engine oil, the only thing that's going to tell me
is the big end bearings and potentially Rodney punching his way through the side of the block. But we should be right, I think. Inherently these things flex like a steel rod, so if I don't hit anything hard enough, I don't think my diff is going to hit the sump. Oh yeah, that's right, and the sump's wrong. But we'll have to look into that. Lazy.
With that extremely concise automotive review out of the road, the best way to test Crumpy in its current format was to do some big, filthy, stinky burnouts and donuts in the bottom paddock. Now, unfortunately, due to the diff being in extremely close proximity to the sump, I was not able to take this thing proper off-roading this weekend, but I guarantee you we will be doing it in a future episode. At least you know you've done a good job at doing big fat stinky burnouts when your motor immediately overheats when you pull up. And on that bombshell, that concludes this episode of Full Bore. I'm sure we're going to be hitting some tougher, more gnarly tracks in Crumpy in a future episode, but until then, we'll catch you next time.
The fact that it's got no cooling in it is probably not helping with the boiling situation.